Bountiful Utah. It's True Crime Drunks. I forgot how the theme song for SNL goes.
Yeah, I did too, but did you see that our Lord and Savior Elon Musk is going to host SNL in like 2 weeks?
I'm definitely watching that one in particular.
Yeah.
Dude, I love when people who aren't actors go on SNL, because it's more of like what can you provide to this table? I want to see what you got.
I just hope it's a whole bunch of Doge memes.
Dude, same.
He tweeted that he was the Doge father.
Yeah.
And Dogecoin went up like 6 cents.
Nice.
It's just crazy. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of True Crime Junks. I'm Wes McBee, and with me, as always, Ollie Lee. Question. When I say bulldog, what comes to mind?
Wrinkles.
Wrinkles? Interesting. So that's not why I asked.
Yeah.
The person we're covering today, bulldog is brought up a lot in a very strange way.
Huh.
And that is a .44 caliber bulldog revolver.
Nice.
Don't know if you're familiar with that, but it is the main weapon of choice for our serial killer of the day, David Berkowitz, a.k.a. Son of Sam.
Son of Sam, more like son of a goon. Look at that face.
Look at that face. He just looks like, I don't know. You know, he has one of those faces where he just looks kind of like...
I feel like he should be giving me a cannoli.
Yeah, he also kind of looks like he'd be like an actor in like C-list crime movies.
Yeah, no, he really does. The thing is, when I like look at him, I'm like, I feel like I've seen his face everywhere. Obviously, he's a very notorious serial killer.
Yeah.
But my thing is, it's like, he just looks like he should be in every gangster movie or like every like Greek movie, or he just has like that.
Like in the background of Godfather and like,
yeah,
you know, all the big crime movies.
Or like just some guy on the street corner yelling at the main protagonist in the movie or show. Like he gives me that side character vibe.
Yeah, and he is from New York, and I'm sure had the accent, and you know, living in the 70s is an interesting thing. The reason why we're covering him today, well, a couple of reasons. A, Netflix is dropping, or has dropped, it's coming out, I think.
It comes out May 5th, I think.
Yeah, so next week, their Son of Sam documentary, so we decided to cover it early and do our side of Son of Sam before Netflix does theirs.
Yes. I'm always curious on how Netflix takes their crime documentaries.
Yeah, because they take them in weird directions. Like, I really liked the Richard Ramirez one, but they got a lot of backlash from that. Yeah,
because they were very graphic, which is kind of up to the interpreter, because it's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, it is a true crime documentary.
Serial killer.
And it's about a very heinous serial killer, I would say, because he's just pure chaos.
Yeah, just Richard Ramirez didn't give a single fuck.
No.
And it's very scary.
Yeah.
And the reason why Son of Sam, Mr. David Berkowitz, is so famous, well, infamous, is he went on a crime spree of 6 murders and 10 wounded individuals during the mid-70s to late 70s, and is definitely one of the most prolific serial killers of the 1900s in general.
Yeah. He definitely had a lot going for him. He even had a law made because of him.
Yeah, he did.
He did, but we'll get to that at the end, because I think that's a very interesting fact that we can get to later. But yes, this man is still alive.
Yes.
And yeah, so.
And he is portrayed, if you guys watch Mindhunters, he is in Mindhunters.
And the actor they got for that
looks exactly like him.
So good. Dude, the Mindhunters cast is ungodly, like, similar.
They did a really good job in that show. I highly suggest, if you're into true crime, watching that.
Yeah.
Because it does give you a cool backstory of, like, how the FBI decided, or how the FBI came about studying serial killers.
Yeah. It's really good and really popular. And if you like psychology and more about the FBI and serial killers, you should check out our last episode.
Dun dun dun.
But yes, David Berkowitz What an interesting man. I didn't really have a joke besides like the son of the goon.
Yeah. Real son of a bitch.
Real son of a bitch, real son of a goon. But he was born June 1st, 1953, which makes him, I think, a Gemini. I don't know if that matters.
No, it's interesting because we did look into how a lot of serial killers have the same signs.
Yeah, and I'm going to do a whole episode on that in the future, so stay tuned for that if that interests you at all. Mostly because I think it's fascinating. I don't believe in it for a second, but it's fun. But he was born June 1st, 1953 in Brooklyn, New York, to Elizabeth or Betty Broder, who also grew up as an impoverished in a impoverished Jewish family and was a waitress. She was married to a man for a little bit of her life, Tony Falco, because David Berkowitz was actually born as Richard David Falco. So Tony Falco, the situation with this guy, of who his father is basically his mom was married to Tony, who had an affair with another guy who was also married at the time, and that didn't work out because then when she was pregnant and was going to give birth, both fathers was like, well, since you don't know, I'm leaving. And so basically she didn't really know who the father was, and basically once David was born, I think it was like 3 days afterwards, she gave him up for adoption, but gave him the man she was married to's last name,
right?
Just because it just made sense. I'm trying to think where did that go? But then he was adopted by Pearl and Nathan Berkowitz in the Bronx, and they were a Jewish American couple who owned a hardware store, and they were retailers, and they were getting old enough and they weren't able to have kids, so they adopted David. But basically then they just kind of changed his name and switched it up, so instead of being Richard David Falco, he was David Richard Berkowitz, and that was their only child that they ever adopted. But with that, he lived kind of a normal life. He didn't really have a lot, but basically, a lot of people speculate he was kind of above intelligence because he didn't really care about school. He didn't want to learn. Like, it couldn't keep him entertained. That's what some people think is because he was pretty smart. But either way, so he was kind of a troubled kid. He got in a lot of crime, loved to steal, loved starting fires.
Yeah.
So,
which is a trend because we've heard that a couple times from some of our other prolific serial killers, that fire as a child is a very prominent thing.
It is. And I don't know if I heard him in an interview why he did that a lot. I think a lot of them, it's because it's a control thing, and they like being in control kind of thing. So
well, I think fire just symbolizes so much to someone who can't mentally I don't know. If you build a fire with your bare hands, it's something special.
It's much more satisfying, and it's something you created, and it also can cause so much destruction. Yeah. But neighbors would even say that David was kind of spoiled, difficult, and kind of a bully. His parents even took him to a psychologist, just because of how bad he was getting and things like that. But then again, it never got him into trouble as a kid. All of his stuff, he never really got into trouble. He never got in trouble with the law. He got in trouble, but he never got in trouble with the law, which is a really interesting thing.
His childhood kind of reminds me a little bit. Well, I don't want to say that. I was gonna say socially, he kind of seemed like a Dahmer minus the alcohol. Yeah. Where people would probably have never thought that he would have turned out to be a murderer.
Yeah, because I think he was just honestly that school bully. but like also that school bully for no reason.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, at the age of 14, his birth mom, adoptive mother, did die. And after she died, it kind of put a strain on him and his adoptive father's relationship, especially because his adoptive father got remarried.
Yeah.
And that David took really, really hard.
Well, and wasn't the situation like his stepdad got remarried in a different state and just kind of like left?
Well, it doesn't really say anything about that because it said that he lived with him up until college, and then I think his dad, because they owned a hardware store, so I don't know if he would have left that. But no, but basically, David was like, no, my mom just died. But then he also realized he was adopted, and then, you know, but he did graduate high school, and like, but kind of like his early childhood, I would say he's kind of the most mild out of everybody we've done so far.
Yeah, it didn't sound like he was doing any of the stereotypical things like killing small animals or
no
playing weird games or fantasizing about strange things.
No, it was just petty theft. I think that's why he's a little bit more interesting because of the chaoticness of his. I think some people would say is like even his nature.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he was adopted at such like as an infant, so like he never had to deal with like his birth mom. But then his mom died of breast cancer, and I think this is like that's a good thing to remember for later as to why. That's something good to remember. But yeah, no, he stayed with his father, went to and graduated from high school, and then
I believe he even graduated early because he decided very quickly after high school to join the military.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's fascinating because it's with David specifically, there's a lot of people who try and theorize like what it was that really turned him into the monster he is, and I'll get into what I think it is, but there's always the potential, and I know this is a tough subject for a lot of people to talk about, but there's always the potential that it was military service that may have done some mental damage to him.
Yeah.
Even though they don't talk about that. In my research, it said that he enrolled at 17, which would have made him an early graduate.
Yeah.
Some places say he enrolled when he was 18. Regardless, he did enroll into the United States Army and served time in Fort Knox, as well as an infantry division in South Korea. And 3 years into his service, he was honorably discharged. Now, I did a little research into what that means, because dishonorably discharged is a very negative thing. Honorably pretty much means that you had to have good to excellent records and then a valid reason to leave.
Yeah.
I dug and couldn't find why.
No, there's no record as to why he left the military. There's nothing, which is really weird because normally that's something, I don't know, would have been talked about at some point.
Right.
Like some interviewer would have at least asked why, but nothing.
Yeah, and he served 3 years. I don't know if in the 70s it was different, but typically like you would be able to serve 4 years and then leave. So I wonder if like he just wanted to get out. I mean, traveling to South Korea and, you know, being an infantry division definitely could have seen some scary things that maybe wanted him to get out. But that's always something that I find fascinating is there is a lot of people who have served in the military that we've talked about that are serial killers. So that's always something to remember. Yeah. It's like maybe something happened that tripped some wires.
Yeah, that could definitely be something.
I personally think it's probably when he returned home, one of the first things he did was searched out his birth mother.
Yep.
And most psychologists say that this is the turning point in David. This was when he basically broke. He found out the truth about his family and was struggling to deal with the father figures in his life, his mother's decisions, like...
And then his adoptive mom dying.
Yep, and his stepdad kind of like, you know...
Bailing.
yeah, bailing slash like moving on really fast.
Yeah.
It's really tough, and they say that this may have been um, David, like his identity getting shattered, like him not really knowing who he is. And if you think about it, like you grow up as David Berkowitz, right?
Yeah.
But then you find out that you were actually David, or you were Richard David Falco, a whole different identity.
Yeah.
And that your mom didn't really know even who your fathers actually are, so you have two potential fathers out in the world.
Yeah.
Like all of this information overload, and coming back from military service, and now trying to figure out as a young man in the 70s, like, what the fuck do I do?
Yeah.
I could definitely see how that would be a identity crisis situation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He did, this isn't as important to the story, but I do think it's kind of interesting. He did, when he got back, became a postman. He was a letter sorter.
Yeah.
In the post office.
Yeah, he had a couple interesting jobs. He enrolled into community college, and like you mentioned, he wasn't known for like superior intelligence, because when we look at serial killers now, we think like, well, Bundy was super smart, kinda. Kemper was, you know, IQ smart. Level genius. You know, Gacy and some of these other guys, like, by the decisions and how they handled themselves, were very intelligent.
Yeah.
And David necessarily wasn't, but I do believe that he was above intelligence, or above average intelligence, because he was able to evade the police
real easily.
And I don't think that, I mean, Richard Ramirez was able to do it, but
I think Richard Ramirez is the outlier of every situation, though, because he was just pure chaos.
Yeah, I feel like that man just ran on
he just ran on drugs and Satan alone, and
he had that animal instinct that just you wouldn't see anywhere else.
Yeah.
He did have an array of different jobs before he ended up being the letter sorter, and one of them is in the co-op city. He was part of a taxi company, and then several non-professional jobs. And like you said, he ended up working for the United States Postal Service as a letter sorter, which is just kind of a weird job.
It's really interesting, but then again, it's a really easy job for returning vets or returning military people, because that's a lot of people get into. Because one, it's easy to get in, and two, the benefits.
But isn't that the whole entire like thing? Like, working at the post office can be so like mentally like dumbing or numbing, because there's the whole like going postal, like that's a saying that because like you work at the post office and you just kind of go fucking insane.
Yeah, because all you're doing is this all day,
same shit every day. Now David's crime spree had started in the year of 1975, which would have been just the same year as enrolling in the community college, working at the postal service. Well, I think he was working in the postal service later, but pretty much that same year when he found out about his mother. Later in 1975 is when the spree started, and it did end in the earlier part of 77. The weird thing about David is he does talk a lot in interviews, and there's lots of recorded footage of him, and he's very open, which is strange. He claimed that his first attempts at murder was on Christmas Eve of 1975, where he tried to use a hunting knife and stabbed two women in the co-op city. One victim was never identified. She was able to escape.
Yeah.
A lot of people theorize that maybe she may have been an immigrant, so she didn't want to go to the police.
Yeah.
Or the hospital and risk being deported. The other one was a 15-year-old girl who ended up in the hospital for 7 days. She barely made it.
Yeah.
She was barely able to recover. And after failing with the knife, this is when David switched to his infamous bulldog, the .44 caliber revolver. And if anyone knows anything about guns, like a .44 caliber is like, you know, if you can look up videos of shooting a .44 caliber at like a watermelon or a cement block, like it's a big gun.
It's a powerful one.
Yeah,
It's a big boy.
I think that's arguably the biggest handgun you can purchase on the market, aside from like some one-off, crazy things. So it's a big boy gun, and it's very very deadly.
Yeah.
David then plunged into his shooting murder spree in July of '76. This was his first two shootings. Was an 18-year-old medicine technician he shot, and then I can't remember. I think it was an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old. He shot at both the victim and her friend, killing the victim instantly and then hurting her friend. The friend was able to get to the hospital and recover, but she wasn't able to identify David. However, there were witnesses that did mention a yellow compact car that was not familiar for the area.
Yeah.
And that is important to the overarching story here. A yellow compact car.
Yeah.
In October of '76, a similar shooting occurred. A man with long hair and a woman were shot in their car, which is going to be a very repeated theme here. The man getting hit in the head but not killed was able to rush away. He ended up needing a metal plate put in his head from the injuries, and it was later theorized that David misjudged the situation and thought it was two women, because his MO is definitely young women.
Yeah.
In November of the same year, David approached two young high school girls at an apartment. He asked them for directions, and then he pulled a gun and then shot them, one getting hit in the neck, but thankfully no life-threatening injuries. The other one got shot in the spine, and then sadly she ended up being a paraplegic for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Neither of them were able to give outstanding details about who the man was. In January of '77, so the next year, David had attacked two more victims who were sitting in their car. 3 shots in the car. It was another man and woman. They were a couple. The man sped away with no injuries, but the woman was hit twice and later died hours in the hospital. Or she died later in the hospital. Neither victim had seen the shooter because he had shot from the back window forward. But the police had made the reason why this one was important, this was the first time the police had made a public acknowledgement that the shooting was similar to earlier incidents and that the crimes might be associated.
Yeah.
And all the victims had been struck by a .44 caliber bullet, and the shooting seemed to target young women with long dark hair.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see them put together compounding evidence of like, okay, well, are these all associated or is it all random?
Yeah.
Keep in mind we're in the New York boroughs, so there is quite a bit of crime.
Quite a bit. Also, fun fact about, it is a fun fact about this last one, the one in January, is the couple were actually leaving after seeing Rocky, the first one.
Oh, yeah.
And I like that just because it kind of puts into perspective, because, like,
the time frame
of Rocky just came out, and that's what that couple was just doing, was watching Rocky.
It would have been cool to be alive during the time Rocky came out, because that, like, Rocky's one of the most famous movies of all time.
Yeah, it's one of the most iconic, and not enough people have seen it. I can go on an hour for it. But anyways.
If you haven't seen Rocky, it's definitely worth it, even now. The fighting itself is a little silly.
It's a little cheesy, but it's just like, it's an iconic movie of the century.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So then going on to the next one, on March 8th of '77, David shot a 19-year-old college student walking home from school. This one was kind of gruesome. She saw this guy pull out a gun and she tried to put her books and cover her face, but because we're dealing with a .44 caliber gun, it blew through the books and her, and she sadly passed away instantly. On March 10th is when the spree had hit a lot of the media for the first, well, I don't want to say that for the first time, but this is when there was a big media push. And the New York Police Department and the mayor at the time declared that the same .44 Bulldog revolver had shot and killed multiple of the victims. So they have nailed down 100% it's a .44 Bulldog revolver. So they're starting to compile evidence to put stuff together. In April of 77, 2 more individuals were shot and killed: a 20-year-old tow truck operator and an 18-year-old aspiring actress and model. One of them died. Oh, excuse me, I fucked up my research. One of them died, but one of them was able to. No, sorry. One of them, yeah, both of them died. One died at the scene, the other one died at a hospital a few hours later. And the one that died in the hospital a few hours later was not able to give an account of who the shooter was.
Yeah.
However, this is when things start getting fascinating.
Yes.
In May, so the following month, when they investigated that last shooting of the tow truck operator and the aspiring actress, they had discovered a handwritten letter near the bodies of the victims. They decided to hold it from the public for the time being because they wanted to, try and see if they can put anything together, and then they handed it over to the media to see if, the media could reach more people.
Yeah.
And what this is, I'm going to read you guys the letter because, it's just crazy. But this was the letter that David had left them, and it was the first time he coined the name Son of Sam because in the media he was dubbed the 44 caliber killer.
Mm-hmm.
The letter expresses the killer's determination to continue his work and taunted the police. So he was kind of, if you guys listen to our BTK episode, BTK killer episode, he was big on taunting the police as well, and so was David. So let me and he did leave in misspellings.
Yes, it was not fully.
I believe it was on purpose, right?
I think it was. It wasn't really acknowledged as much. I'm pretty sure he did. I think he purposely left it intact. But then also too, police speculated that it was really close to Scottish English.
Yeah.
So then, but that was the thing. I think he was just trying to make sure there's no loose tracks in any aspects.
Right. So here's the Son of Sam letter that pretty much put this guy in the infamy serial killer Hall of Fame. I am deeply hurt by your calling me a women hater. I am not, but I am a monster. I am the Son of Sam. I am a little brat. When Father Sam gets drunk, he gets mean. He beats his family. Sometimes he ties me up to the back of the house. Other times, he locks me in the garage. Sam loves to drink blood. Go out and kill, commands Father Sam. Behind our house, some rest. Mostly young, raped and slaughtered, their blood drained, just bones now. Papa Sam keeps me locked in the attic, too. I can't get out, but I look out the attic window and watch the world go by. I feel like an outsider. I am on a different wavelength than everybody else, programmed to kill. However, to stop me, you must kill me. Attention all police, shoot me first. Shoot to kill or else. Keep out of my way or you will die. Papa Sam is old now. He needs some blood to preserve his youth. He has had too many heart attacks. Too many heart attacks. Ugh, me, hoot, it hurts, Sony boy, which is the Scottish English thing. Mm-hmm. I miss my pretty princess most of all. She's resting in Our Lady's house, but I'll see her soon. I am the monster, Beelzebub, the chubby behemoth. I love to hunt, prowling the streets looking for fair game, tasty meat. The women of Queens are the prettiest of all. I must be the water they drink. I live for the hunt, my life, blood for Papa. Mr. Boreal, sir. I don't want to kill any more. No, sir. No more, but I must. Honor thy father. I want to make love to the world. I love people. I don't belong on earth. Return me to yahoos. To the people of Queens, I love you, and I want to wish all of you a happy Easter. May God bless you in this life and in the next. For now, I say goodbye and goodnight. Police, let me haunt you with these words. I'll be back. I'll be back to be interpreted as bang bang bank bang ugh yours in murder, Mr. Monster.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
That made a lot of sense, and then I liked how he threw in the Happy Easter, everybody.
Yeah. You gotta throw in the Happy Easter, everybody.
Yeah. That was a lot of just sentences, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's one of those ones where it's tough because when you watch interviews of him now, he doesn't seem completely psychotic. But reading that, he's quoting he puts in weird quotes, and then he says he's Beelzebub, which is a demon, and but then says Happy Easter, so like some Christianity.
God loves you, and I love you, and I love people, but I don't belong here.
And like, is it like him saying that the Papa is like whatever's controlling him? Like, does he have like alter egos?
Like, what does this mean? Which comes to another theory that we can bring up later that I have.
Okay.
But yeah, and then so he would leave letters here and there. His last one was pretty interesting as well. Do you want me to read the last letter? The final page
the
of
one
Cyrus?
to the... Yeah. The one that got sent to the Daily News guy or whatever.
Yeah, I think... What was that? The I said goodbye and goodnight. Police, let me haunt you with these words. I'll be back, I'll be back. To be interpreted as bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yours in murder, Mr. Monster.
Right. It's just... It's so weird. And, they try to say the Scottish English thing because the me hurts, it hurts Sony Boy was taken as a Scottish accented version of my heart, it hurts, Sony Boy. It's from... I can't remember what it's from. I've heard that before. It's from some famous proverb. It's weird. And obviously when this letter was sent, or excuse me, when this letter was found, everyone was trying to theorize. They also said the too many heart attacks phrase and the facts that the two people that he had murdered previously were a medical technician and one was studying to be a nurse. Maybe he's trying to throw hints that he knew. I don't think he knew anything about his victims.
I don't think he did either. I think the theory of them being, because they're brunette, long hair, and it reminds them of either his birth mom or both of his moms.
Yeah,
just mommy issues in general.
Because the thing with David is there is no, at least from my research, there's no sexual things going on.
No,
he didn't have partners that he ever mentioned.
No. And even with the brown hair kind of a thing. But even then, one of the victims was a blonde, and their mom quotes, she was like, it was funny I let my daughter leave that night because she was like, come on, Mom, he's only killing brunettes anyways. Yeah. And then she got.
Right. I think it's, this man is a post. Yeah, for real. I think it definitely is one of those things where maybe he went after, like you said, people who looked like his mom and what his biological mom would have looked like when she put him up for adoption.
Yeah, because I think she was
young, right?
She was young. It doesn't really say. I think it. Well, no, it doesn't really say what her age was, but she was, I would think.
Now they did, while you're looking for that, later on when they capture him, they did a psychological profile, and he was described as I don't know what that word is, neurotic, and probably suffering from paranoid schizophrenia and believed himself to be a victim of demonic possession. Yeah. So he really did think that Beelzebub was taking control of him, and
did we talk about where he got the inspiration of why he should do it yet?
No, we haven't covered it yet.
Do you know what it is?
I don't know if I put it in here or not.
Oh, so the reasoning why he believed he was possessed and the reason why he needed to do it is because of his neighbor's dog commanded him to get blood of the innocent victims.
That's right.
It was because of a dog that wasn't even his telling him that he needed to kill people, which he then later said he made up.
Yeah, for sure.
But I just like, out of all the things to think of, is just this dog who's really old.
Just sitting in the backyard. It's like, David, bring me the blood of the innocent.
Bring me the blood. I need to survive forever.
There was another famous letter that was sent to a Daily News columnist individual, like a journalist, from someone who claimed to be the .44 caliber shooter. The letter was postmarked earlier the same day. It's much longer than the first one, and he just kind of goes more on a rant. So I'll read this one as well, just so we can get even deeper into the mind of who he was. So it starts out, "Hello from the gutters of New York City, which are filled with dog manure, vomit, stale wine, urine, and blood. Hello from the sewers of New York City, which swallow up these delicacies when they are washed." Sorry, my keyboard keeps moving on me. "What are washed away by the sweeper trucks. Hello from the cracks in the sidewalks of New York City, and from the ants that dwell in the cracks and feed in the dried blood of the dead that has settled into the cracks. JB, I'm just dropping you a line." That was the journalist's name was Jimmy Burslin. "JB, I'm just dropping you a line to let you know that I appreciate your interest in those recent and horrendous 44 killings. I also want to tell you that I read your column daily and I find it quite informative. Tell me, Jim, what will you have for July 20th or July 29th? You can forget about me if you like, because I don't care for publicity. However, you must not forget one of the victims, and you cannot let the people forget her either. She was I don't use victim names just for prosperity's sake. She was a very, very sweet girl, but Sam's a thirsty lad, and he won't let me stop killing until he gets his fill of blood. Mr. Burslin, sir, don't think that because you haven't heard from me for a while that I went to sleep. No, rather I am still here, like a spirit roaming the night, thirsty, hungry, seldom stopping to rest, anxious to please Sam." So is Sam the fucking dog? Is that...
Well, because that's kind of where my theory comes, is a lot of people believe that Son of Sam was a cult. But I think in this aspect, it's either talking about the cult / yes, the dog.
That would be so funny. "I love my work. Now the void has been filled. Perhaps we shall meet face to face someday, or perhaps I will be blown away by cops with smoking 38s. Whatever, if I shall be fortunate enough to meet you, I will tell you all about Sam, if you like, and I will introduce you to him. His name is Sam the Terrible. Not knowing what the future holds, I shall say farewell, and I will see you at the next job. Or should I say, you will see my handiwork at the next job. Remember, miss," and then he put the name of one of his victims. "Thank you. In their blood from the gutter, Sam's creation. 44 here are some names to help you along. Forward them to the inspector for use by the NCIC." And he says some other names: the Duke of Death, the Wicked King Wicker, the 22 Disciples of Hell, John Wheaties, rapist and suffocator of young girls. P.S. Please inform all the detectives working the slaying to remain. P.S. JV, please inform all the detectives working the case that I wish them the best of luck. Keep them digging, driving on, think positive, get off your butts, knock on coffins, etc. Upon my capture, I promise to buy all the guys working the case a new pair of shoes, if I can get up the money. Son of Sam.
Son of Sam.
Dude's a straight up... Yeah, I agree. We had a comment say the fact that these people exist is fucked up. Like,
yeah,
doing all this research, and I talk about this every single episode, doing all this research on the serial killers really makes me like realize how bad humans are.
Yeah, no, it really does. It makes it, I don't know, it's just weird to think, to be honest. Because it's just like, I think we say this almost every time. I don't feel like this one was as fucked up as the other ones we've passed, but there was like a 3-week period straight where it was just like, we were like, this one's fucked up.
Draining.
And then the next one we're like, no, this one's fucked up.
This one's way more fucked up.
This one's way more fucked up.
Then we did Richard Ramirez, I'm like, oh.
And then I was like, I think Richard Ramirez tops the cake for me. I'm not going to lie. Just a little bit.
Yeah, I think Dahmer was tough for me. Like, dude just like fucking had body parts hanging out in his house. That casually.
Yeah. I don't know. Gacy still was the number one for me in eeriness. Yeah. To be honest.
You know, yeah. Anyways, moving on, so we don't repeat the same shit that we always talk about, because we could go on how all these damn serial killers are fucking us up.
All the time.
So, fast forward to June of 1977, another shooting occurred. A 20-year-old mechanic's helper and a 17-year-old recent high school graduate. She was a woman. The mechanic helper was a man. Same situation. They were sitting in their car, and 3 gunshots blasted through the vehicle. Both victims ended up surviving their injuries, but were unable to see the shooter. However, 2 witnesses did report a tall, dark-haired man in a leisure suit fleeing the area. Not enough evidence to really do anything, but still. On July 31st of 1977, this is the first anniversary, the 1-year anniversary of the initial .44 caliber shooting. 2 20-year-olds, a man and woman, were shot in their parked car. Again, the same exact situation. This man and woman were on their first date, and they were kissing when a man approached the vehicle and shot 4 rounds in the car. Sorry, I lost my note marker. One victim, the man, lost his eye from a bullet just basically blowing out his eyeball.
Yeah.
And the woman did lose her life. In August of 77, a young woman was out walking her dog. This is when pretty much the downfall of Son of Sam happened, and it's kind of fascinating, to be honest with you. A young woman was out walking her dog, and she watched a patrol officer ticket a parked car. Moments after the patrol officer left, she saw a young man walk past her towards the car. She said that this man studied her, like, intently studied her.
Yeah.
And she felt super uncomfortable and concerned because it looked like this man was holding like a dark gray object.
Oh.
She began to run because she got scared with her dog, and she heard gunshots. And she doesn't know if it was like directed at her or whatever. She was not hit. She made it home safe, and she was scared for her life. A lot of people seem to have bashed her over her decision making, but she ended up staying home for 4 days before reporting this.
Yeah.
I kind of understand it, because like if you have a situation like that, like you may just not want to fucking leave your house.
You may not want to leave your house because you don't know if he like followed you.
Yeah.
And also like one of those things too, it's like this is also like a crime area in New York.
Yeah.
You don't know if maybe you say something and then someone's like, nope.
You saw something too much, or
yeah, like you just don't. Something like that is a very scary thing to get involved with.
Yeah.
And honestly, you know what? At least she still came out and reported it.
Yes, she is the reason that in my opinion, she's the reason they were able to capture him.
Yeah.
She did contact the police after those 4 days, and they were able to check what cars were ticketed that night.
Oh.
And guess what was there? A 1970 4-door yellow Ford Galaxy, which we had mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
A yellow compact car, and this was in the name of David Berkowitz. Very interesting. Our Son of Sam. He had kind of already been someone they've looked at because of other like kind of petty crimes that had. David's just kind of an interesting guy.
Yeah.
And the police did have their eyes on him a little bit already.
Mm-hmm.
But when they found out that his vehicle was one they ticketed, they immediately were like, okay, well, let's go search his car.
Yeah.
Next day, they showed up. They found the Ford Galaxy outside of his apartment. They saw in the back a rifle, which isn't illegal. You can own a rifle. During this time period, I don't know if it's changed, but you can own a rifle. That's totally fine. But they found a duffel bag filled with ammunition, maps of the crime scenes, and threatening letters addressed to people on the task force.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of puts a lot there. The investigators decided, instead of going up to the apartment and risking like a very violent situation, they were going to wait for David to leave. And at 10 a.m. on August 10th, he left his apartment building, got in his car. And this just seems like a movie scene, but the detectives had walked up to the car. The one on the driver's side pulled his gun and put it to the head of David. Yeah. And then the other detective pulled his gun to the passenger side. And the first thing out of David's mouth, just like cold-blooded, was, well, you got me. Just straight up.
Straight up, like, well, that was fun.
You got me. And then, of course, to, put the icing on the cake, the .44 Bulldog revolver was right next to David in a brown bag. So, on August 11th, Berkowitz was interrogated for about 30 minutes in the early morning. He quickly confessed to the shootings and expressed an interest in pleading guilty. The investigation was led by John Kinnan, who took the confession. During questioning, David claimed that his neighbor's dog, here we are, was one of the reasons that he killed. Slating the dog demanded the blood of pretty young girls. He said that the Sam mentioned in the first letter was his former neighbor, Sam Carr. David claimed that Harvey Carr's black Labrador Retriever was possessed by an ancient demon, and that is issued commands that David must kill people.
Yeah.
A few weeks after his arrest and confession, David was permitted to communicate with the press in a letter to the New York Post dated September 19th, 1977. David alluded to his original story of demonic possession, but closed with warning that that has been interpreted by some investigators as an admission of criminal happenings. There are other sons out there. Here's your goal thing. Mm-hmm. There are other sons out there. God help the world. So he basically was saying there's more people out there who are going to do the same thing. At a press conference in February of 1979, David declared that his previous claims of demonic possession were a hoax. David stated in a series of meetings with the special court-appointed psychiatrist that he had long contemplated murder to get revenge on a world that he felt had rejected and hurted him.
Yeah. I think it's also really interesting to think back to when he was arrested, they did find in his apartment satanic graffiti on the walls and also diaries that claimed all of his arsons as well. And they claim that he could have done over, some sources like speculate that he might have committed over like 1,400 different arsons.
No,
just like small, like I don't think they were obviously big ones, but enough that it's like
arsons. Yeah,
man just loved fire.
Yeah,
fire and firepower.
Pyromaniac.
Yeah.
Anyways, I start blasting. So during his sentencing, there was 3 separate mental health examinations that determined that David was competent to stand trial. Defense lawyers advised David to enter a plea of not guilty by result of insanity. Typical stuff. He appeared calm in court on May 8th of 1978 as he pleaded guilty to all of the shootings. And at his sentencing 2 weeks later, and for the record, this was kind of a short one, a short court case.
Yeah.
Usually we get these long, drawn-out court cases. He was, captured in 77, late 77, and was sentenced in May of 78.
Yep.
David caused an uproar when he attempted to jump out of a window of the 7th floor courtroom. After he was restrained, he repeatedly chanted, "Stacy," his last victim, was a whore, and shouted, "I'd kill her again. I'd kill them all again." the court ordered another psychiatric examination before sentencing could proceed. During the evaluation, David drew a sketch of a jailed man surrounded by numerous walls, and at the bottom he wrote, "I am not well at all." Nonetheless, David was again found competent to stand trial. On June of 78, he was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for each murder to be served consecutively. He is ordered to serve time in Attica Correctional Facility in upstate New York Supermax Prison. So he the terms of David's guilty plea made him eligible for parole in 25 years, which he did not get.
No.
Obviously.
No, definitely did not. And because of him, we also now have the new law, Son of Sam, because of him, and it's basically the law just states that that is designed to keep criminals from profiting from their publicity of their crimes, often by selling their stories to publishers.
Right.
So basically, this law now authorizes the state to seize the money earned from deals like books, movies, biographies, and paid interviews, and use it to compensate the criminal's victims.
Right. So he can't be he can't be in prison just making fucking hand over fist selling his stories and, you know, painting shit like Gacy did. And...
Yeah. Because the thing is, they had to stop Gacy, because Gacy was able to kind of get away with it, only in the sense of because he was getting outside source to sell his paintings. That's why he was able to make some money for commissary. But for direct funds to person from something like this is different. I mean, I guess if he like told it to one person and the other person told it to the other person and got the money. But technically, any interview you get from one of the criminals, they just don't get the money because it's a law now, which people have criticized as against First Amendment, but also at the same time, I'm like, man killed many of people.
Yeah, I mean, prison's an interesting thing. I feel like if you're in prison, isn't that sacrificing your amendments?
Yeah, like you kind of like are. Yeah,
in a way, I don't really have an opinion on that. I've never thought about it. But...
I never really thought about it that way either. I just at the same time was just like, no, that kind of makes sense. Just in the sense of like, there's no reason also for a man to be making that kind of money.
No.
But
commissary, like, what is he gonna do? Buy out commissary?
Right.
You know,
he's gonna buy all for my homies.
Yeah, got my homies in the back.
Yeah, but in 1987, Berkowitz did become an evangelical Christian, and
typical.
Yeah. So, and now if you listen to him, because I've listened to some of like his recent interviews where he's like, I don't know who that person was. Like, I only believe in God, Christ, all that stuff. Basically, he's kind of switched the journey now and like preaches in jails or in his jail now.
You know, I've always wondered about why that happens, and I truly think it is like you know, when you lose your freedom, you pretty much have to find something that makes you comfortable.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just devoting yourself. Like, you kind of see two things with a lot of prison inmates. Either they just turn to extreme physical fitness, like doing, you know, push-ups, sit-ups, and, you know, just going that route.
Working hard.
Or you go down the route of, like, an extreme religious ideology. And, you know, it's better than causing problems in prison. So yeah.
So do you want to hear my theory on why it's a cult?
Yes,
Son of Sam is a cult. So this kind of comes from, actually, let me look up what was the book called? And I think this is where my theory of the Netflix documentary is going to come into play, where I think the Netflix is going to play because I think it's a 4 to 5 part or 3 to 4 episode hour-long documentary series, so like 4-hour documentary about it. But I think it has to do with the cult aspect. I think they are going to bring that up because I've been reading 2 articles now about this one survivor in particular. And I think the idea comes from this book, The Ultimate Evil, an investigation of America's most dangerous satanic cults, that came out in 1987. The thing is, one of the victims, it was the one who was, he was the one that was shot in the back, or like the back of the car. It was 3 bullets. I think both of them survived.
Yeah.
The gentleman, he believes that it was actually a cult, or like that David was like a satanic leader or Satanist, essentially. Mostly in the sense of like, because like he didn't actually see it was Sam, so he actually doesn't actually believe that it was David Berkowitz that actually did it. He's kind of like has a theory that it was like other people were involved, that it's like all like actually an organization, and he's like I can't. But the thing is, there's not any evidence to prove that it's a cult and that there's other members. But the thing is, they want David to talk about it because they want to prove that it's a cult.
I hate to be a complete dickhead when I say this.
Yeah.
But it 100% sounds like this victim wants to try and create things to make him
some mummies. Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of as well.
Which I'm fine with. Sure, like, get your money, my guy, but it's... Maybe. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not possible. Anything's possible, but, you know, given the fact that he confessed to everything and, you know... Yeah.
But I guess we'll have to see on May 5th when the documentary comes out because he gets interviewed. So I don't know the full story of it.
Oh, he gets interviewed like 2021 interview?
Yeah, 2021. Whenever they were filming this, the victim I'm talking about in particular does actually come out and say stuff.
Do they interview David?
I don't know if they interview David in it. I would assume possibly because David's still alive to this day.
Yeah, he does interviews.
He does interviews. I mean, I saw one. He looked probably like 50, 60 years old, but I think it was like 2010. Yeah. I don't think it was that old. But he still talks about it to this day. And I mean, like, he was on Mindhunters, so like, I mean, he was also relevant. He was relevant to that. But the victim I'm bringing up with the cult thing, I don't know if I don't believe it. Mostly in the sense of like, I just think this man hit his breaking point at some point in life, and this is just how he coped with the breaking point. Because the thing is, I can't see any reason that it's...
Well, I think that all of these serial killers try and plead insanity, and the best way to do that is, you know, having these demonic ideas or like, this dog's talking to me or whatever. I mean, I'm always down to hear a cool story, but definitely seems like a stretch.
It does seem like a stretch because I know other people have theorized that there's been helpers and things like that. The only reason why I don't say that there was help for him is because, one, if you have a way to lessen or to make your life sentence better, you would call out people instantly. If you knew you were going to go away for the rest of your life and you could live it cushionly, if you just called out the people who are running a cult, you would do it.
Sure.
I feel like this man especially would have done it. But the thing is, especially coming out as Christian and forgiving and all that stuff, I just don't truly believe that it was like a team effort. Well, like, I don't think this was like a Manson thing.
No, on top of that too, like the whole, I don't know. It was only mentioned in one thing that there's more of us. Yeah. I don't take that as like, hey, we're a cult. I took that as like, there's a lot of sick people who could do what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I think the Son of Sam is just like a metaphor of like evil. No. Because that's when he's like, yes, I'm Sam. And it's just like, I think it's just a son of evil. It's like what it kind of goes down to.
But I'm definitely down like demonic cult shit. Like,
sure. I mean, I guess we'll see with the Netflix documentary how it kind of turns out, you know? Kind of see if it like actually is as good as it portrays. I mean, they are going to interview that victim I just mentioned, so I'm really curious to see where that goes. Because I love cults.
Yes.
2, I love victims that are trying to get money.
Yes.
And 3, I love a good conspiracy.
The 3 best marks to hit.
The 3 best.
I mean, I'm definitely in. I'm definitely watching it. I'm very interested to see where they're going to go with it. But
and I'm very interested because I know we did all of our research, and I feel like we did a really good job. But I always love Netflix's input because the thing is, documentaries, I love and hate them because they're super biased or they're super not biased. But they're always a little bit biased. So I'm always curious on like how what kind of way they like to go.
The thing that I like about documentaries is the fact that they have a budget where they can do shit like interview victims. Like, I mean, we've done one interview so far of a victim and it went really well, but if we had a budget, we could definitely get more
people,
more enticing individuals who would want to come and talk about some interesting things.
To this day, I still want to interview the detective of the Golden State Killer. That guy. I want to meet that guy and just say, how was it finding that tissue in that trash bag?
Right.
How was that satisfaction of a cold case that's been bothering you for a decade plus? How are you feeling?
I want to interview. I think I talked about this.
Yeah.
The fucking nerd who.
The BTK.
Yeah, with the floppy disk, who decoded the floppy disk. Like, he's the one who broke that case.
He's the one that fixed the case. See, that's the thing is, it's like, I definitely want to know those stories, too, because I just feel like they're all... Because we always talk about the serial killers, and we always talk about, like, what they did. We never talk about the heroes that find them.
Yeah. That's
always the fun, interesting fact of me. Because I love detective shows and things like that. So I'm really interested.
Right. Same. Well, that about wraps it for Son of Sam on our end. I mean, like we mentioned earlier, I don't think he's one that necessarily was fucked up as much compared to the other ones, but definitely very infamous.
Yeah, I think the reason why he's very infamous is just the chaoticness of him, because that's the thing. Oh, I forgot. We just did a whole long podcast about the 4 different serial killers as well. But he goes in the same boat as Ramirez in the sense of, like, it was just chaos.
Yeah, because he really just, unless there is a deeper conspiracy, it really just seems like he felt wronged by... That's the thing is, like, when he says he felt wronged by society, did he feel wronged by his mom and step-parents? Did he feel wronged by, like, the military and the honorable discharge?
Yeah.
Did he feel wronged by, like, his jobs, like his education? Like, what was it?
What was what was his turning point? What did he bring it up to be? Yeah. I'm really curious. I'm really excited for the documentary. It's going to be a good one.
So as far as what we got going on next,
yes,
are we ready to jump to the weeklies?
I think so. I think we're going to start the weekly starting next week.
I'm excited. So our plan going forward is there's going to be a weekly True Crime Drunk stream on Saturdays.
Yep.
Give or take. It might fluctuate on Fridays and Sundays, but we're going to try and shoot for Saturdays. And what it's going to look like is starting now, we'll do a week together. Mm-hmm. Then the next week, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Can you start so I can... yeah. 2 jobs.
2 jobs. So next week, I'm going to stream by myself and cover a specific crime. I have my first one in mind. I've covered this before on my other podcast, but it's the death of Michael Franke in the Oregon State Prison. It's very fascinating. It's still deep-rooted in conspiracy, and there is 100% people who got away with some really shitty things.
Yeah.
So I'm going to cover that one. The following week after that, we'll be back together for a double episode.
Yep.
And then the week after that, Holly's going to do an episode.
Yes.
And then we're just going to repeat that schedule from here on out until either we need to take back and just do bi-weekly or whatever it looks like.
Yeah, either, or someone goes on vacation, so either someone else needs to pick it up or we just skip a week because, life happens.
Yeah, but we'll definitely be on top of letting you guys know if there's not going to be a stream on Saturday.
Yeah.
We'll make sure to let you know on our social medias or whatever it looks like. As far as our next double episode, what are you thinking we should do?
I don't know. Did we have any ideas so far?
Well, I had sent you a list of some cults.
Yeah.
That we could jump back into. Let me see where my notes are. Because I take a lot of notes that just end up being put into here, and I don't label them because I'm an idiot.
I feel ya. It's one of those things that I get completely.
I end up just leaving them a lot of... I use Google Docs, so a lot of mine just end up being labeled untitled document, and then it just fucks me when I try to go find stuff.
No, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
So cult-wise, we have the Indonesian Witch Hunters,
Ooh.
Order of the Solar Temple, Crocodile Men for Congo, and the Jambola Cult are some
Ooh.
ones that I had come across. And then somewhere in here is a list of other bigger, serial killers and things that we should probably start working towards. I think if we're going to do another serial killer, we should dive into the one that I brought up last week. The dude who skinned people and made...
Oh, Ed Gein.
Ed Gein.
Maybe we should do, honestly, the Indonesian Witch Hunters.
The Witch Hunters?
That one I really like very much. Let me put it in my phone real quick. Indonesian Witch Hunters. I really like that one.
Yeah.
That would be cool. And then we could do Ed Gein.
Let's do that. And then eventually, I did have someone ask if we're covering Manson. So I think maybe going into June, we'll do Manson. We'll do the Manson cult.
Yes. My only thing is, will you please watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yes, I need to watch that. I know. And I do. If we do Manson, I think, with given enough time, we should try and read. What is it? Helter
Skelter, which I can get as a discount on at Barnes & Noble.
Whoop,
whoop, shouts out.
So let me explain for listeners what the schedule looks like as far as dates.
Yes.
So today's the 1st of May. On the 8th of May, I'll be doing my first solo episode. The 15th of May, we'll be back and we'll be covering the Indonesian Witch Hunters. The 22nd of May will be Holly's first solo episode. And then we'll come back together on the 29th of May to cover Ed Gein.
Yep.
So, hopefully there's no confusion for anyone. I'm going to try my best to work out getting a schedule for our Instagram or Twitter or something like that, just so people know when what's going to happen. And then we are going to push really hard to get affiliated here on Twitch. So, if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to drop a follow.
Yep.
Come watch it. If you're listening to us on the back end, come watch us live every Saturday. It's twitch.tv/truecrimedrunks. If you're listening to us on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Our website is truecrimedrunks.com. And then if you'd like to email us with anything, or if you want to help us research or have suggestions, truecrimedrunks@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And same for all of our social medias. I believe it's all just True Crime Drunks.
Yep, we got very lucky with that name. That's a dope name.
Yeah. And eventually we'll incorporate the drunk aspect with potentially small segments of drinks of the day.
Drinks of the day, yes.
Some bevs. Some bevs for the...
Some beveraginos.
Some beveraginos for the boys and the girls. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next week for the murder of Michael Franke. Have a good week, everybody.
See you later.